So it's great to be this week thinking about first in our Chrispiration Conversations as we think about what inspires us about Mary. And it's wonderful to have Sandy and Malcolm and Tracy joining us today to think about how amazing that Mary is. So I'm going to start with Tracy.
Oh.
Do you want to just tell us one of the things that inspires you about Mary?
Okay, something that really inspires me is that she was just so accepting. All of a sudden there's this angel in front of her. She's probably not met one before. And he tells her she's going to have a baby and it's going to be God's son. And yes, she says, hang on a minute, I don't understand. But that's all the questioning that we get from Mary. And she just accepts it and says, okay, God, here's my body. If this is what you need to do, here I am, and I'm okay with that. I really love that she went and wrote her poem. I really love that when we see her going to the temple, when Jesus is born, she's pondering and she's treasuring in her heart the things that she's told about her son. And I love that she keeps those things, and quite often, she had what we might describe as not an easy life. And yet she had those things to go back to. She'd written those things down, she'd pondered them, she knew what it had meant to her at the time, and that was really real for her. And she didn't let herself get knocked off course. We don't see her complaining in the Bible. She's just there, and she brings up this baby knowing that he's different. And we don't read much about her in the Bible, but we see her at a wedding. And at the wedding, the servants are in a bit of a tiz because they've run out of wine and they've got another day or two left of this wedding, and what are they going to do? And she says to them, go and speak to my son. And I think, why on earth would she have done that? Unless she had watched him growing up in her family home, doing things just like that. Making things when there wasn't enough to go around. Filling the gap. Doing things that can't be explained. You wouldn't just say to servants at a wedding, I'll go ask my son, he'll sort out the wine for you. Unless you had good reason to know that he could. So I think although we don't see and hear much about Mary in the Gospel, that she's there all the time with Jesus, and she's bringing him up and watching him as he's growing and knowing that he is different, and confirming what was told to her by the angel, that he would be God's son. So that I find that really inspiring.
Yeah, my thoughts are very similar. I thought if it had happened to me and this great big thing with 6 wings appeared and said, you're going to have a baby, I am engaged to somebody else, and if I do anything I shouldn't do before I get married, I'm going to be stoned to death. And unlike Gideon, when God asked him to do something, he kept asking for signs that he really meant it. Not just once, but several times. But Mary just says what she feels about being pregnant without being married, and then says, okay, I'm yours. I'll do what you want me to do. And I just find that amazing.
That's amazing. I think the thing that really struck me there, that you both said, is just that sense of the okay then. And would you say, is that? Do you see that as like tremendous faith, or the naivety of youth, or a bit of both? Or what do you think about that? Oh, all right then. For any of you?
I think a bit of both, but I also think God knew what he was doing. He's got a plan, for everybody, not just the people in the Bible, but us as well. And we may not quite understand it at the time, but it's his plan. And as long as we say, okay then, I'm with you, the plan works.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I was pondering that. Was this just an overzealous teenager? But actually, she brought up in a Jewish home. She would have known what Messiah meant, and how important that was to her people, and what a responsibility that was that she was going to take on. And also, you know, when you've got this angel turning up in front of you, that's pretty real, isn't it? It's probably pretty in your face. You're not going to forget that or think, oh, maybe it was just a dream.
Markland, any thoughts?
It just sounds very inspiring I would imagine, as a woman and a mother to be, because like you say, like an angel appeared before her, she didn't freak out. She seemed to be very in the moment, very still, very present. And she just accepted it. I think she truly believed with all her heart anyway. And she celebrated it. She had a lot of joy in what was happening, a lot of confidence. So yeah, that woman to aspire to.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Okay, carry on. Have anyone else got any thoughts about anything anyone said?
Well, Tracy mentioned Mary's poem, and I just wondered if I could read them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. For from now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him, for generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their utmost thought. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers."
That's in Luke's Gospel, isn't it? Near the beginning, let's just go with that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from any of you about the poem, the Magnificat, any of those words?
I think just that she was just so willing, and she knew what it meant for her people and how important it was. And as I was been thinking about Mary this week, and just thinking just how little we know about her in the Bible, and this whole thing of Jesus growing up with her and then her following him round for 3 years while he's preaching and teaching and being there and seeing all of that. And in my head, the Mary that's following Jesus round is still the teenager. Because that's what we hear most about Mary, is when she's the teenager and she's about to get pregnant. And then she's giving birth. And in the same way, when you see children that you've not seen for a while, and you go, and they've grown up, you think, what? How did that happen? And time slips away, and so I've always pictured her as being quite young. And I was reading something in preparation for this, and it was a really good reminder that actually Mary did follow Jesus. She did see all the amazing things that he did and the interactions with people. And she was there at the cross. A lot of the disciples couldn't bring themselves to be there, but she was there. And she wasn't a teenager. She was probably almost 50-something, almost certainly menopausal. She's got brain fog, she's got hot sweats, which are worse because she's stressed, because she's watching her son be hurt. She's got all this going on in her head. And yet she stays there, she stays at the cross. And she takes what life gives her, and she still praises God, and she still knows that God is with her, and she's still there with the disciples afterwards. She's championing his cause, even without him there. And I think that's really amazing. She saw him, she knew him intimately, and she knew who he was. And she made sure no one forgot that. You know, the disciples are up huddled in a room. But I'm pretty sure she was around saying, you know, what are you doing? He came, this is what he came for. I understood that, why didn't you? And that it's been a real challenge to me to think, actually, these people that we read about are real people, and they live through the stuff that we live through. And they cope with everyday normal things like menopause, and like being rejected by your family, like losing your husband. You know, Joseph wasn't there at the cross. She was on her own, and Jesus is saying to his best mate, will you take care of my mum? She's going through all this, and you know, so many things that we can identify with. And yet so often we read it because it's in the Bible and we don't put reality in it. So I found it really interesting looking into that this week.
Carry on, any thoughts? Come on, Martin, you've always got something to say.
Like I said, she must have felt quite special and honoured as well, because she wasn't a queen or like really important person. So, yeah.
I'm having to restrain myself now, because I'm having the thought that's just floating through my mind is that change in relationship for Mary. You talked about how she says at the wedding, go and get wine. She tells him what to do, and then of course that shifts pretty quickly, and that must have been strange, wasn't it? Very strange. The idea of the menopausal Mary, which wouldn't have occurred to me. So thank you for teaching me about that. And it's just making me. And what's floating through my mind is how that's beginning to make me think differently about the time when Mary and Jesus' brothers come to get him and take him away because they think he's gone a bit mad. Does that shed any light on that, do you think? Or?
It might well do, but it might also be a mother's concern that, you know, you're working too hard.
Yeah.
You don't stop. It's your brother's birthday, or, you know, whatever the occasion was. Just come home and be with the family for a minute.
Yeah, very good. I'd like to come back to the Magnificat for a minute, the poem you so helpfully read. And what always strikes me, you referenced Gideon that we've been thinking about for the past few weeks, so gold staff to you, well done. And you think of many of the other characters in the Old Testament who might have served God. Jonah's a good example. He did what God told him to eventually, but he was a bit about it. How do you think you go from, how do you square these two things in your mind, Sandy? You said both these things. Mary should have been stoned to death, but yet she's got this really exciting song of praise. How do you put those two things together?
Well, I think that it was just God working in her, like he works in us if we let him, you know. So I can't tell you any more than that, really. It's just God at work.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's just such inspiring faith, isn't it? Because I guess I can only think of times in my life where it's been hard to serve God. And sometimes I'm a bit grumpy about it, and I think what inspires me about Mary in that instance is just the way she's just like full on, this is amazing. This is amazing, yeah. Yeah, great. And any other final thoughts then, or anything else anybody wanted to say? No, well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to learn together about Mary and how inspiring that she was. So thank you very much. We give them a clap. I've been amazed.